Oh, hey Rex.
Oh, hey there, Trick. What are you up to?
Not much, just looking at the stars. How about you?
Well, I'm just out walking, blowing off steam. Me and Terry had a fight.
Again?
Yeah. She complains I don't do anything round the house.
Do you do anything?
Well, look at my arms. They're tiny. Of course I don't.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the downsides to being a Tyrannosaurus.
Well, tell me about it. And I'm supposed to be the king of all the dinosaurs.
You are.
This here is the first animation I ever made. It's a 90-second short called Stargazing. This pair of silhouettes on a single backdrop took me 2 days to animate in a program I didn't really understand, let alone master, Adobe Flash. And once it was finished, I never opened that program again. Animation is a hard one to master, and unless you have the money that Disney has, your film is never going to look like Disney. I have long since stopped enjoying Disney's output, but I also have to acknowledge it isn't being made with me in mind. But Disney's classic era is a string of excellent movies that have mostly stood the test of time. But I wanted to talk about some of the cartoons that no one ever seems to mention.
Comrades, our leader, as wise as he's beloved, has decided to trade with the outside world. Not for gain, of course. That would be unworthy of our noble principles. You, hens, are to have the honour of making the first contribution. All your eggs.
This is Animal Farm, based on the George Orwell fable. It's also the first ever animated feature film to be made in the UK. Most Brits my age would have first seen this movie while at school, as Animal Farm used to be a part of the national curriculum. I have no idea if the rise of far left sympathies and its removal from the classroom correlate, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Maurice Denham is a unique deliverer and voice producer who captured the inflectuation and the delicate accents of this character, and all these combination provided a very strong and a true and a believable character.
Maurice Denham actually provided the voice for every character seen on screen.
And the soundwork had a wonderful way with the sheep and the pigs and so on. I did about 3 different pigs, or 3 different chickens, and then he would overlay it, one after the other, hundreds and hundreds, so he finished up with a great herd of sheep.
The only thing that really dates this movie is the creaky old third-person narration.
Now began the heartbreaking job of rebuilding. And as before, Boxer and Benjamin worked hardest of all.
Also, if you're familiar with the original text, you might note the ending has changed in the film. The book ends with the animals coming to the realisation that the pigs and the farmer have become indistinguishable from each other. But here, the animals rise up and overthrow the pigs.
I would defend, and I am sure Joy Batchelor as well, this end in the film, which is a positive media. You cannot send home millions of audiences being puzzled. You got to be a little bit more positive and show the future.
I really like the writing of George Orwell, and by extension this movie. And although much is made of 1984 being his masterpiece, Animal Farm is the work I recommend above all others. If you're not much of a reader, then perhaps this movie could act as a gateway drug. This is a photograph I took of the statue outside BBC Radio Theatre in central London. If you can't read what it says, then please allow me to repeat. If liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear. And it's my belief that more people should read that.
Martyr! 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 Achevez-moi! Achevez-moi!
Satrapi, qu'est-ce que tu fais encore?
Je souffre, ça ne se voit pas?
Allez en classe, tout de suite!
Persepolis is the autobiographical story of Marjane Strapi, a young girl who flees Iran to avoid the Islamic Revolution and settles in France, and is based on the comic book by the same name.
Moi c'est Marjane, donc on est en train de faire le film Persepolis avec Vincent Paronneau, mieux connu sur le nom de Vincelus, pour les bandes dessinées qu'il a fait.
What lifts the film above what could be seen as depressing subject matter is the simple, childlike art style. Disney has conditioned the average animation viewer to expect stunning visuals, and if you got that, well done you. But it really isn't as necessary as you might think. These images are low detail but full of character. At times the backgrounds are almost featureless, but it has a good script and the French language version has some top-notch performances. And you can forgive a lot when you're invested in the story.
A new world of experience awaits us, my loves. This bathtub is now transformed into a space capsule of truth and love.
This is wild. Yes, only in naked closeness like this can we all come to know each other.
Yes, right. Very good, Winston, darling. Naked closeness. True. You are a perceptive girl. Mm-hmm.
The first animated feature film to be rated X, Ralph Bakshi's Fritz the Cat, based on a comic book by Robert Crumb. It's a freewheeling hangout film which touches on topics of sex, drugs and race relations, but is probably most remembered for the group sex scene in a bathtub, which I'm currently covering up.
For my adult animation, which I was thinking about for quite a while, I started to design techniques that I thought would work in animation, because I was bored with the old way of going into a recording studio and doing an actor's voice on one mic and another actor. So what I wanted to do was record in the streets. So I stopped people in the streets, hippies, actual folk singers, drunks, bums, hookers, prostitutes, and I talked to them with a microphone and a tape recorder running on Niagara, or I take them out to my office and give them $5 each, and I let them talk. I would, of course, steer the conversation to what I thought the screenplay should be.
I went to school in Oakland. And I had quite a few white that was school kids with me.
And then I'd edit those tapes, and sir, if you ask me, what did I add to the film? I had natural conversations that I edited or juxtapositioned around to build dialogue that was missing, and that I storyboarded that, and that gave me new sequences.
You will not find a bigger fan of Ralph Bakshi than Ralph Bakshi himself. If you watch him in an interview, he will have claimed to have invented and revolutionised everything in animation. And this film pushed boundaries for sure, but then so did the original comic. And I like the material that they used from that most. The naturalistic conversations, recorded in a documentary style, mostly feels like padding to me.
Can you dig it in your eyes? You're younger than me. You're 45, 48, whatever you are. I'm 67.
I wish I knew. I would give you glasses. I'd take another pair from the
Well,
house.
I didn't think of it that I need a glass. Maar er is mijn kop. Gedenkstand niet al zoveel zaken.
This sort of reportage recording and then animate over the top was done much better by Aardman with the Creature Comfort shorts.
They try to make you comfortable. They try to put you in a quite nice situation with standard food that look more like a dog food than food proper for wild animals. All right?
The budget for Fritz the Cat was so low that the production could not afford to make penciled tests. They had to go straight in and animate it, which leads to this jittery style, which can play in a lot of people's eyes.
Blue? Oh, glad you could make it, man.
Howdy, John. I brought along an old buddy of mine. He's a bright lad, but bored with life.
There is a lot I really like about this film. I particularly like the voice they chose for Fritz, but it really feels like it should be an episodic TV show rather than a movie. A lot of the most controversial material has been outdone by the likes of South Park these days, so feels rather tame, though the race relations story still carries a lot of weight.
Hey! It's Michael Corleone there. What you doing now? What you doing now?
Hey, crazy man, how come you're not down in your basement?
This is Ralph Bakshi's follow-up film, Heavy Traffic. It's similar to Fritz the Cat in the fact that there are themes and mood but no real plot. The characters are all human, but they're drawn with wildly different styles. The main character, Michael, is drawn with fairly realistic proportions and expressions, while others look like they belong in Ren and Stimpy.
Let's go get a jug and talk about time.
I got up this morning and I was thinking about you. And I thought of this song, which I'm going to play for you right now.
I would go so far as to say the visuals are trippy, and the sound mix disorientates me too, creating an obstacle for immersion. But I really like it when the cartoons are on photographic backgrounds, and that's actually something I've been trying to mimic for years in my own artwork. This sequence, which is presented to the audience as a fantasy going on in the mind of the protagonist, is clearly constructed from a series of pencil tests. Fritz the cat didn't have the money for pencil tests, and it seems that Heavy Traffic didn't have the money for animation. I've sped this up for copyright reasons. As a result, it looks less jerky than it does in the movie, where it's accompanied by Chuck Berry's Maybelline, also removed for copyright reasons. But it actually works really well. I was surprised how little animation was needed for you to construct it as a story.
殿様、うちの目牛を売った金でございます。さあ、お受け取りください。これでジャンヌは私の。
目牛か。何頭じゃ。
一頭しかうちには目牛はございません。
10頭。
え？
目牛10頭の値を税として納めよと仰せられるのじゃ。
そんな！お助けください。貧乏な私どもにはとても目牛10頭など。
This is my favourite of the films I'm going to talk about in this video, but I'm not sure if it really counts as an animation, as the majority of Belladonna's sadness doesn't move. The story, which is basically a reimagining of Faust, is largely told in stills, with occasional flashes of movement.
くすぐって何するのよ。
力を上げたいんです、ジャンヌ。お望み通りに。
あんたがそんなちっぽけなのに。
ちっぽけなのはあなたのせいなんだ。
私の。
うん。私は。
It is a truly beautiful film, each shot being drawn in a unique style with a mix of watercolours and ink. I believe in Japan, where this movie originates, there is a history of telling stories in this almost picture book style. There is something so simple, so stripped to the bone about it. After I watched it for the first time, I felt like running outside and screaming, "Why did nobody tell me about this film?" It's the sound design and the voice actors that draw you into the story, but it's the music what pushes you along.
青く透き通るこの肌を明日は愛のため捧げます春の花の下恥じらいに赤く体染め抱かれますベラドナ美しい女ベラドナ恋をした女悲しみの足音はまだ聞こえてこない
This video is most probably unable to be monetized now, but that song is far too good not to be included. I'm aware that this is a strange collection of movies to talk about, but the reason I mention them is because they have all inspired me in some way or another to try my hand at animation again. I mentioned this in a previous video, but I'm making a short cartoon. I don't want to reveal too much about it, but I've drawn it myself, and it's about cows. It's going to be a little bit crudely animated, but the soundtrack's going to help, and I'm really looking forward to sharing it with you. Be sure to watch this space. You can even subscribe if you want to keep updated. If you're feeling generous and get some enjoyment out of these videos, then you can send me the price of a cup of coffee via Ko-Fi. There's a link in the description if you want it. If you haven't got the spare cash, then why not recommend me some animations to watch in the comments? I'm Scott Kingsnorth, and I'm making a movie.